Hey everyone, welcome back to the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast. This is Yvette Hampton, your host, and I am really glad to have you back with us today. I hope you're having a great day, whatever it is that you're doing today. I have a great guest on today that I'm really excited to introduce you to. His name is Scott Hardin, and he is the author of Science Shepherd. They are a science homeschool Christian curriculum, and so we're going to hear from him today and going to hear his story about why he wrote this curriculum, and we're going to talk about science today. So I think you are going to be greatly encouraged. So Scott, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. I'm really glad to be here.
Yeah, I would love for you to tell us a little bit about you and your family.
Sure. My wife and I have been married for about 31, coming up to 32 years. We have 6 kids and had them very, very young. Really in our early 20s, started with kids. And so we had 6 and at first did not homeschool them immediately. So that was a little bit of growing time for us. So we had our first 4 kids are all biologic kids, and then didn't have any more kids, and we wanted some more. So we went for a while, and then probably about, 7 or 8, 9 years after my youngest daughter was born, we had a fateful day at a Stephen Curtis Chapman concert after he had gotten back from adopting his oldest daughter, Shoei. And it just, it happens, and you're not looking for it. And so about 10 months after that, we were in China and bringing home our 2 girls. So it was, so they were our last 2.
Wow, that's awesome. Are your 2 adopted girls, are they biological sisters?
They are, yeah, they're twins.
Oh, they're twins. Oh,
Yes.
How fun. And they're how old?
They just turned 17.
17. Okay. Wow. That is exciting. That's a great, I love Stephen Curtis Chapman. He has had such a great ministry, and I love their ministry, their adoption ministry that they have.
Yeah, we do too. We have been very big fans of his. I mean, obviously for a long time, but that ministry has been really blessed us, obviously, a lot, and we've been really involved in it. We love what they do.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know years ago I read Mary Beth Chapman's book, Choosing to See. And that book it's amazing. It's so encouraging. It's heart-wrenching, of course, reading their testimony about their daughter, but it's such a good book. And I love that she just, she's grappled with so many things, but always again goes back to Jesus, and God is sovereign in all things, even through the really hard times of life. So
their witness is so powerful.
Yeah. Anyway, I would love to hear your story about homeschooling, because you said it took you a little while to get on the homeschooling train.
Right.
Why did you decide to homeschool?
Well, we had our kids at the time. We had our kids in a local Catholic school, which was a very well-respected school. But I think there were, as there always are, there are a lot of things going on at the time. So this is back in probably the early 90s, I guess. Yeah, this would have been probably 93, 94, in that range. And my oldest was in 3rd grade, then 4th grade, and our other kids were coming in. And we really had a lot of false sense of security of our kids being in a Catholic school, being in a religious environment, so to speak, and it teaching them the morals that we wanted them to learn and carrying them over. And I think it really hit my wife, for sure hit my wife first, that we have them, even though they're not in the public schools, they're still in a very much a pagan driven society, and we did not want to leave them in that. And my wife, I still remember the first time we were actually going to pick our kids up from school, and she said, "I think we ought to homeschool." And I'm like, "What, are you crazy? Those kids are all weird. We don't want to homeschool." And so we talked about that for a while, and it really did seem to be the right thing to do. And so we finished out that school year, and they never went back. So my 3 oldest were had been in school, but then my 3 youngest have never been in school anything other than homeschool. And it's been, I think I'm always arguing with myself what the best thing is that we ever did, whether it was homeschooling or adopting our 2 kids. And I think since homeschooling affects all of our kids
Uh-huh.
in a way. Maybe that wins out a little bit, but man, it's really hard.
Well, I
To
say you don't have to decide. You could
yeah,
just let them be a tie.
yeah, which is okay, and it's been a great blessing to our family in such in so many ways, other than just having them at home and making sure that what they're learning is what we believe, what God
Mhm.
believes, and being able to uh, really infiltrate all of their learning with uh, with that foundation of it's God's world that they're learning about.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I think homeschooling is such an amazing way to impact the lives of our kids and of children across the globe. Um, and adoption is the same way. And so I think really I say they can tie because
Yeah,
you have impacted hearts of your children through both homeschooling and adoption. And for us, it is the greatest thing about homeschooling is being able to point our kids' hearts towards Jesus. And so having that impact in their lives, both through homeschooling and adoption, I think is amazing. So I love that so much. Um, Talk about Science Shepherd and how this curriculum came to be. I want to hear about why you created it, and then talk to us a little bit about what it is and what you offer.
sure. Well, it's kind of a longer story. I'll pare it down a little bit, but uh, for me, it really starts when I think about why I wrote Science Shepherd. It really starts way back when I was in high school, when I was in school, learning about evolution. I came out of high school believing evolution. I did not, I was not raised in a family with faith.
Okay.
And so I came out believing evolution was the way it went. I went into college, and of course, being in the sciences, in biology, heavily genetics, etc. All of that's, you're taught that evolution is the way it is. You're never really taught anything different. You have really no reason to question it. Why would you
Hmm.
question it? Because everybody knows it's true. And by the time I got into medical school, my wife, we were kind of phasing out of the Catholic based approach and more into an evangelical Christian approach. And she was a little bit ahead of me on that. But by the time I got into medical school, things started really falling apart. And it wasn't from a faith standpoint; it was a scientific standpoint. When
Mm.
I would ask questions about how does how did this stuff happen? How did evolution happen? How do you explain evolution genetically? How did the first organisms come to being out of nothing? And
Yeah.
how did those how did that happen? There's never any answer, and sometimes I'd be answered with a question of, well, are you a creationist? And I'm like, I don't even know what a creationist is. I'm just asking a scientific question in my mind,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm answered uh, with philosophical blowback. That's never a good thing in science when you are a scientific mind and a scientist, and you are trying to get scientific answers to be given a philosophical rhetoric is it's not a good place to be. So I mean, for me, it was great because
Hmm.
it continued to undermine the whole scientific thing. So for me, I moved obviously away from evolution. I didn't have anything for a while. It wasn't very long, but then as we got more and more into the evangelical Christian world and really understood that the Bible is not just a bunch of really interesting kind of fun stories for
Hmm.
kids, and you can put little animals
Right.
on a boat and float them in your tub. That there actually is real stuff that
Mhm.
actually happened, and scientifically, there's nothing that argues against it. As that happened, that was really a good thing because then for me, both of those things came together at a very close time. So then, as we're going through, that was certainly on our mind. Do we really want our kids learning about this in school? The Catholic schools were teaching that, just like
Mm.
the
Public
secular
school.
schools.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said earlier, a lot of this stuff is bubbling around. So for me, as the kids were getting older, this is way back in, and now we're in the later '90s, where there was good stuff out there, but
Mhm.
coming through as through undergrad and then medical school, and then we're never done learning as physicians. I mean, I hope none of us are ever done learning, but so many so many um, uh, trades or jobs or whatever you want to look at it. Sometimes they kind of get to a certain point of learning, and then they're kind of done. And I hope we would all learn, but that doesn't always happen. But for physicians, we have to keep our licenses up and to keep board certified and stuff. We need to keep learning. So I wanted to make sure that we had something strong for our kids while they were in school. And there, at the time, like I said, there was good stuff, but I thought that maybe there was a better way to do it and not lose the message of God as being integrally intertwined into everything that is about science, but making sure then that we present a very solid, easy to understand, rapidly advancing science, but then have it all rooted in God's Word. And so that was, for me, that was kind of the challenge, and has been really fun to try to keep up with it. But that's really what drove me, was as my kids were getting closer to the age where they needed a little bit more advanced science. How do we make that happen? Can I do that? Can I add something to the homeschool community that obviously not only benefits my kids, but also might benefit a lot of other people? And that's kind of been what's driving me since then.
Wow, that is an amazing story. I love that so much, because it's one of the things I think about often is that, and we've talked about this on the podcast, it's so incredible to me that people will look at the awesomeness of God's creation, whether it's, the galaxies or the human body or, animals or, just whatever it is, and look at these things and say, it just happened by chance. And we came from nothing. And the thing is it gives that in itself gives us no purpose in life. When we tell our kids that they were made from nothing and that there's not an awesome creator who created them, like I often say on the podcast, on purpose and for a purpose, why do they think they have any value in this life? You look at suicide rates and you look at depression and all of these things that our culture is dealing with right now. Well, why wouldn't it deal with those things when people feel like they have no purpose and they were not created by an awesome creator who made them on purpose? Who really cares? I mean, why not end your life if you have no meaning and no purpose and you came from nothing? And because life is hard. Life is hard for everybody. And so I love that you went from that position of evolution and just, of course, we believe in evolution. That's obviously truth because that's what your school taught as you were growing up, and then coming to this place through medical school. So let's talk about that for a second. You are a doctor. You're an actual medical doctor.
I am. Yep. Yeah. I graduated from the Medical College of Wisconsin in, 1993. I did then a 4-year residency at the medical college. My specialty is physical medicine and rehabilitation. So I got done in 97, and I've been practicing since that time. For the last probably 7 or 8 years, I had been very heavily into into kind of senior leadership at the organization where I work, still practicing. But over the last, really the last year, Bill, my son that you've talked to quite a bit, we were really looking for what can we do, what's bigger than us, and he was really looking for something. What he was doing before is not what he's doing now, fortunately. So he came home about 1.5 years ago. He'd been living in Florida doing some stuff and really started to help us as a family thing. My daughter helps us with this. Bill came home, and we've really started to look at this more as a mission that we're really all involved with, and everybody has something to bring to the table. And for me, what I bring to the table is hopefully the ability to write these courses in a way that makes sense, that are easy to read, and that teach the kids well. And so about 3 months ago, I stepped down from all of the senior leadership stuff I was doing, went back just what I call into the general population. I'm just seeing patients again on a fairly restricted basis, so I can write 4 or 5 days a week, and that's been really good.
Oh, that's awesome. There's no greater thing than to use the gifts that God's given you to impact his kingdom. We strongly believe, and I'm certain of it, God has given every single one of us a gift and a passion and the ability to do something for his kingdom.
Yeah.
And especially as a doctor, I've known moms who have their doctorates, who are lawyers, all sorts of these high level achievements, and they're moms who stay home and homeschool their kids because they know that that's what's most important for them during this time of their life. And what a blessing that you're using what God has blessed you with and the ability to learn these things and then write about it, so that as homeschool mamas and dads who don't have that knowledge can then take that. Because years ago, like you said, there were not very many options for homeschool families when it came to curriculum. Let's take a quick break. And then when we come back, I want to actually talk a little bit more specifically about Science Shepherd and what your curriculum has to offer.
All right.
Take a quick water break. 1 second. And we are back with Scott Hardin. He is the founder of Science Shepherd. Scott, talk to us about your actual curriculum and what the different things are that you offer, and maybe kind of take us a little bit through some of the textbooks that you have.
Sure. I'll start from our younger grades. And this is one thing I want to, I guess the main thing I want to emphasize about our curriculum is we are very actively growing. I am writing a lot of stuff right now. I plan for example, for the 1920 school year, we should have 3 new courses online for that. So we are really growing, and I want to fill in all the gaps. I realize we're wide, but we're not deep. And so that's really the next couple of years for me, that is filling in the depth for everybody, so they know, a lot of the homeschool folks, they love to find something that works for them and then stick with it. And right now they can do that a little bit with us, but we're just not deep enough. We can cover them from grade school up to through high school, but it's not enough. And so I know that, and we will have those gaps filled in. So our first course, our course for the youngest students, is called Introductory Science, and it's actually a video-based course. So I don't have a textbook for that. I thought that for grade school kids, that video would be far more engaging. We have it's me teaching basically short videos, 2 to 4 or 5, maybe 5 minutes every single day. There's a lot of other pictures, other video, etc., that goes along with just me talking, so it's not, you're just not looking at my face for the whole time. And then there's a workbook that goes along with that. And we have 2 different levels of workbook. We have one for younger students and one for older students. So that was our way to try to begin the process of getting our younger kids involved, because prior to that we didn't have anything for kids younger than 12 or 13. And then our next course that we have, kind of time-wise, although you can do it whenever, it's about an 8-week course called Unearthing the Bible. And this was done in conjunction with one of the pastors from our church, who basically talks about Old Testament events and then goes over the archaeological finds that support all the Old Testament stuff. And it's really cool. It's cool stuff. We've got, again, audio and video. It's a video-based course with a workbook for the kids to work through that. That lasts about 8 weeks. And so then our next course is Life Science, which is for the middle school years, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, for kids that maybe don't do a lot of science or don't really like science that much. If they're in 9th grade, I think it would be a good primer for them to get into high school science. But that's kind of the wheelhouse there for those kids. And then our what I really had spent the most time on and have really focused on the last couple of years has been our high school biology text, which is pretty beefy. I mean, that was my intent, was to write something that was very advanced, really more of an advanced placement sort of thing, and be, again, very easy to understand and be very straightforward for the kids to be able to progress quickly through it. It like I said, it's beefy, but most of the kids do just fine through it. And if there's any trouble, I still can talk, I can still talk to them, email with them, and help them out. They don't we don't get that much, but once or twice a year we'll get a kid that's really, really struggling and want to help them out. And then last year, about this time, we were recording, and I transferred that all onto video. So it's now a video-based program, but supported with a textbook. And you don't need to do both. You can do just if you just want the written material, you can do that, or you can take me again teaching the course for the whole thing. So if I think that's been helpful, especially for kids, again, that struggle with science, or kids that just really like science. They get a lot of science every day. So they're daily lectures that are supported by the book. And that's really where we're at. Oh yeah, and I forgot for biology, we also have an integrated lab, and we have video-based stuff for the lab too, which is basically me doing all the labs in our kitchen.
Oh, wow.
Where I figured most of the kids were going to do it, so they would be able to see, well, you can do it. You don't need a fancy lab environment. You can do it there. You get the results, and I go through them with them step by step. What you do, this is how you do it. For the microscope things, so many people struggle with the microscope simply because they never get the focal plane right. They never get what they're looking at in focus, and they're like, oh, I don't see anything. So we go through it with, I go through what they should be seeing. I have a camera hooked up to the microscope, and they can see that. So this is what you should be seeing. If you're not seeing it, I kind of troubleshoot with them. I do all the dissection labs and walk them through it. So that was kind of the other part of biology was my whole thing was not that I don't want the parents involved, but so many parents don't know science, and it kind of scares them. Yep. I wanted them to feel very comfortable. Yeah. I wanted them to feel very comfortable that if here, son, here, daughter, here's Science Shepherd biology, do your thing. And it's the syllabus is all written out for them, and all they have to do is follow it. And when the year is done, they're finished. And that was really, really my intent of doing that. So it's kind of the whole thing. And then, like I said, I'm writing right now. I'm writing a middle school chemistry, kind of a high school preparatory chemistry, and physics, and those will go together. You don't have to take them together, but there'll be two, kind of one semester each for middle school. And then also by the summer, I should have a high school. I'm not sure what I'm going to call it yet. Maybe I'll just call it this because it's very descriptive, but a high school biology for the non-science student.
Oh, yeah. I love that title. I think you should stick with it.
Maybe I should.
It is very descriptive.
Yeah. And I think those three should be done. And again, like I said, we're really trying to fill in a lot of the gaps that I know we have. So a couple of years down the road, I really want people to know that if they're going to go with us, they will have everything that they need for their kids. It's going to be high quality. It will be highly, Christian based. And I do want to mention one thing about how I treat that in a second. But I want folks to understand that that's my goal is to be, I'm a scientist at heart. People don't really realize that that's, physicians we're trained as scientists to look at data objectively, review it, interpret it, and then put it into practice. And so I want to teach kids how to think. I don't want to teach them what to think. I want to teach them how to think about scientific data and how, when it goes in your brain, how do you process it and munch it and spit it out in something that's coherent? So they're just not walking around like all these zombies that believe in evolution and don't have any idea why. I mean, I didn't know why I believed in evolution. So that's a very strong point of my stuff is to make sure I'm walking the kids through it. They don't even know it, I don't think, but walking them through how to assess data, how to integrate it, how to think, and then how to make logical conclusions based on that. That's been a really huge piece for me.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Because I know, I've talked to your son, Bill, and he's talked about how you're really passionate about the fact that the Bible and science are completely compatible. And so bringing that into your curriculum and helping to teach that to the kids and helping them to internalize that is, I think, so important with science. When I was in high school, I don't remember pretty much anything from any science class I took. I don't even know how I passed them. I mean, I learned what I needed to learn for the test, just barely to pass the test, and then took the test, checked some boxes, and I was done and didn't need that information any longer. Thankfully, actually, I went to a Christian school for most of my childhood. You were talking about Catholic school, and I went to a Catholic school my freshman year in high school, and I remember my science teacher. Oh, he was terrible, and I remember him saying, yeah, well, the Bible is just like you said, a bunch of stories, and, Noah and the ark, that didn't actually happen. It's just a story. And how devastating, because what a lost opportunity he had. But I love that you make science real and bring the Bible into it, because that's the most important thing. And we tell our girls that they need to learn the basics of science. Now, I don't know if either of them will become scientists. Possibly my youngest one, she really is interested in chemistry right now. She's only 8, but she watches DIY Sci. I don't know if you've seen those videos on YouTube, and I think they're on Amazon and stuff too, but she loves to watch those. And so she was so excited because we found dry ice the other day. And she's like, Mom, the things we could do with dry ice. And but it's so cool that there are people like yourself who are taking that knowledge, coupling it with the Bible, and giving us the opportunity to teach it to our kids, because I couldn't do this on my own. I mean, I can read a textbook to my kids, but to just read it to them and not have any idea what it is that I'm teaching to them seems kind of pointless. I don't want to just get through the textbook. I want them to actually understand God's creation through science. And so I think science is one of the greatest, if not the greatest way for our kids to understand God's character and who he really is, because he is the creator. And again, that goes back to he created them on purpose and for a purpose. So their own bodies are a reflection of God's goodness and his amazing creation. So I love that. So you're still working on stuff. You've got already some curriculum set up. Do you go to homeschool conventions?
We have and have not. It kind of depends on the year and what's going on. So sometimes yes and sometimes no.
Okay. I imagine as you're rolling out more and more curriculum, you'll probably start to pop up at more conventions and stuff. I know for a homeschool mom like myself, I love to actually see things and touch them and get kind of a firsthand look at the different curriculum that I'm choosing for my kids.
People definitely like that. We've been really pretty blessed by Rainbow Resources. Has been really good to us, and they go to every single convention that's out there, and
they have a massive booth.
and usually our stuff is there. So So if people ask us, we usually, at least if we're not going to be there, we direct them to the Rainbow Resource booth, because they usually have our showing our stuff.
Okay. Oh, that's good to know. Yes. Rainbow Resource always has an amazing presence at every homeschool convention I've ever been to. So that is good to know. We can direct people to them as well. We're out of time for the podcast, but I actually want to continue this conversation. And so we're going to keep recording on video. So for those who are on the Backstage Pass membership site, the thing I would love to talk with you about, because I feel we're not done here. I want to talk about how to identify and address the lies of evolution, because you were in that place at one time, and knowing that you've come completely to the other side of it and recognize truth. I would love to talk about how we as parents can help our children to recognize truth, and how we as adults can recognize that as well. That's huge in the culture right now. And, the first thing I would say, of course, which I'm sure you're going to say, is know the Word of God. Yes. There's no better way to recognize lies from truth than to know the truth, and that is through the Word of God. So, but will you hang on with me for a few minutes, and we'll continue the video for Backstage Pass members?
Oh, yeah, I'd love to. Yeah.
Okay, that'd be awesome. So for those listening to the podcast, thank you guys for listening today so much. As you know, if you've heard the podcast, we've got what's called the Backstage Pass membership site. And what that is as we have been filming for Schoolhouse Rocked, the documentary, and podcasting and doing Facebook Lives and all of the things that we have going on, we're putting a bunch of those videos and resources up on the Backstage Pass membership site, and any subscriptions to the Backstage Pass site go directly to production on the movie, and it's cheap. It's like $4.99 a month. That's just what is that, $1.25 a week. So if you want to be a member on there, go to what is the website? You could just go to schoolhouserocked.com. Actually, I should probably know the direct link to that, but I don't off the top of my head. But go to schoolhouserocked.com, and you can just click on Backstage Pass and have access. There's actually several free videos on there that you can have access to, so you can get an idea of what we have on the Backstage Pass membership site. And again, as I always ask, please leave a review for us on iTunes if you are being blessed by this podcast. That really helps us to get the word out about the podcast and helps people to know what it is that we're doing here. But thank you for spending time with us today. I hope you guys have an awesome day, and we will talk to you again next week. Okay. So, hi, Backstage Pass members. And we'll put links, by the way, and all of this stuff to back to Science Shepherd and your website and curriculum and stuff that you have going on. But I just want to talk real quickly about how, we talk about how the Christian homeschool community needs to encourage students to go into science and then equip them to be able to identify the lies and address the lies that are being taught in our culture today. Can you address that?
Sure. I think you certainly mentioned it before the break to backstage here, and that is, the first thing is absolutely you need to know the Bible, and you need to be very comfortable, even if you don't know why. You have to be very comfortable in the fact that there is no objective scientific observation that undermines the Bible's authority. There just is not. There is spin, there are agendas, but when you objectively assess scientific data, there is nothing that argues against what the Bible says. And when you flip that over, again, if you're not a scientist, you may not know this, but when you flip it over, there is plenty of information, there's plenty of data that argues against what evolution would predict. And the problem is that, of course, you're never given that information. Nobody ever talks about that. And I think understanding how we got here is really important. I think history, I love history. I think how we got here is really important to understand. I think just looking back over the last several hundred years of history, evolution is the most powerful tool that Satan has to undermine God's authority. It permeates everything in our culture, and it's not just in our culture. It's a culture around the world. And evolution really allowed, I can't remember who it was. It might have been Richard Dawkins or Richard Lewontin, a famous scientific atheist, who said that finally evolution gave me a faith. It gave me something that put a framework on everything that I believed. If I don't believe in God, evolution has taken that framework. And to understand that everything that is ever framed in any evolutionary discussion, even if it's not framed as evolution, but when you're talking about the billions of years old Earth or anything, that is an agenda. Excuse me. There is plenty of reason to question that when you see that. So I think the first thing is know your Bible, and the second thing is whenever you see something presented like that, it's a lie. It's not true, and that there are plenty of data that would support your position. You might have to go look for them, or maybe ask somebody that knows a little bit more about integrating scientific facts and putting that in with a kind of biblical story. I get it. It's not easy to do, for sure. But just to be very comfortable with the fact that if you see something, and it's everywhere, these scientific, pseudoscientific stories of some fossil intermediate was found, or they saw something that, whatever it is, there is lots of different, there will always be lots of things. There's always two ways to interpret these facts, our observations, the scientific observation is the fact, but what you make of it is entirely different if you have your evolution glasses on or if you have your creation glasses on, and you can come to very reasonable conclusions that don't argue with the science, and they certainly are supported by the Bible. So to just know that in the back of your mind, that you don't have to kowtow to the evolutionary establishment to be scientific, and in fact, if you know your data well enough, and your Bible, you can easily present stories, explanations that no evolutionist can argue with because they're wrong. And they know, you get to a point where they know that. And it's rare to be able to get into a truly objective conversation with somebody who does not believe what you believe, and get them to the point where they realize, gosh, I think I'm wrong. I may not want to take the next move, but I see that I'm not right about this, because it's just turned into, it's just a very dogmatic discussion. We had a couple of weeks ago a little interlude on our Instagram page with a very dogmatic evolutionist that I also don't think was very scientific, but you can see the dogma is just interweaved in everything that she was saying, and didn't understand, how do you present a logical argument? How do you respond when people have refuted your facts? Her response was to throw the same stuff back in my face that I already had scientifically very easily refuted. And we were done. At least I was done at that point. I'm not going to argue with somebody that doesn't even kind of understand the basic rules of academic discourse. But that I always hope that people will feel comfortable, even if they have to get more information, but initially feel comfortable with the knowledge that any of the stuff that is presented in evolutionary light, you can always feel very comfortable that it's a lie. Because that's the agenda, that all, anybody who is not an evangelical young earth creationist, that is what they've bought into. And some of them know it, that it's not true. Most of them don't. They believe it like I did coming up through school. But you should know, that the individual hearing that should know it is a lie. And I may need to get help, but there's help I can get, and there's data out there that will support my position that this whole evolution thing, whatever they're talking about, is not true.
Why do you think that it is that people who are on the other side, who believe in evolution, are so passionately and adamantly opposed to even the idea of creation?
Part of it rests in the whole understanding that, or I shouldn't say understanding, the whole teaching of science that we can't rely on some supernatural explanation for the scientific world, for the natural world. Naturalism has to be explained only by natural events. Well, that's okay, fine. I mean, if that's really what you want to believe, the problem is that there's a whole lot of things that you can't explain, even by naturalistic mechanisms. So at some point you get, and I think that that whole foundational argument is you can't rely on supernatural explanations is underscored by this whole nonsense about how we all got here to begin with, where the earth and the universe and everything came from, which is nothing. That's inherently a ridiculous argument. But because we have people, like Stephen Hawking, who everybody thinks are so smart, telling us that, yeah, everything came from nothing. There was a point of nothing that exploded into everything. That's stupid. Who honestly would believe that? But yet that's what we're force-fed to believe, and everybody believes it's true. And then we go down, the multiple universe theory, and there's just more and more stuff that if somebody would just kind of pull their head out of the dogma and just think for a second, my gosh, that doesn't make any sense. That makes no rational sense, what I'm being told. Why am I being told this? So they are already kind of going back to their own supernatural explanation, but they just try to do it without God. So that whole process, we're taught over and over and over again that science can't rely on supernatural processes, and yet they rely on multiple supernatural processes to explain naturalism. So they don't see that dichotomy there, but it is there. When you're able to step back from this nonsense and separate the science from the dogma, you see that you have a lot of foundational problems. And there's plenty of evolutionists, plenty of academic evolutionists that realize that there is this problem with not relying on supernatural phenomena. There's lots of stuff they can't explain, but they're still not going to go there because the alternative is God. And when you look at in the National Academy of Sciences, these are all the people that are setting our scientific agendas. These are the people that are writing all of our textbooks. About 95% of them are atheists. Some of them are agnostic, but I mean, if you're an agnostic, you're still an atheist because you don't believe in God.
Right.
So again, it's kind of the self-fulfilling prophecy that you can't rely on a supernatural mechanism. That's the foundation of it.
Yeah, it's so heartbreaking to me how people have hardened their hearts towards the truth. They're just not even willing to listen. And then it's such a beautiful thing once people come to that point where they say, like you, maybe there's a different way. Maybe there's some truth to this creation thing, or what is a creationist? What does that even mean? And starting to look at the other side of it and realize, oh, there is truth to this, and there is a creator who loves me. And it's such a beautiful thing. It is by far one of my favorite things about homeschooling is that my husband and I have the chance every day through just everyday life, to teach our kids about the truth of God's word.
Yeah.
And there's no greater thing than having that opportunity to be able to do that and help them to understand who he is and how he made this world and how he made the human body and how he, and not just how, but why. Why did he do all this? Why did he create the world the way that he did? And so anyway, yeah, it's awesome. I love what you're doing. I am so grateful for your ministry. I love that you've kind of taken a sidestep from your career as a medical doctor, and you are actually focusing much of your attention on what God has placed on your heart. So thank you for your passion for science and God's creation, and your willingness to take what God has put on your heart and share it with the rest of us. I think it's such an exciting thing.
Thank you.
So we will link back to everything Science Shepherd in our show notes. Where can people find you? What is it? scienceshepherd.com, right? Is your website?
Yep. Science Shepherd, and it's SHEPHERD. There's
Okay.
a lot of variant spellings of shepherd, but yeah, SHEPPARD. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. We will link back to that in the show notes. And then you also have a few.
Sorry, wait. Wow, that is totally embarrassing.
SHEPHERD.
HERD, yes. So,
You're thinking of the other ways to spell.
Yes, I am. Yeah. There's a couple more. Oh, that was horrible.
But this is real life.
Yeah.
And then you have a few YouTube videos, right?
We do. Yeah, we have a couple of things that are really just demonstration things, some samples and things like that. But we do have several things on YouTube. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Awesome. We'll put those in the notes. And thank you again for your support of Schoolhouse Rocked and what we're doing here. And we fully support you guys. I love what you're doing. And I'm excited that we get to introduce our listeners who have not yet heard of Science Shepherd to be able to go and check you guys out.
Yeah. Thank you very much. It was great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so much. And have an awesome rest of your day.
Thanks. You as well.